Now the second part of our instalment, guys, about soils and that is you're going to use a pot, obviously. And so I want to explain the difference between different pots. So if you get a cement pot like this, it's made basically from a cement mix and it doesn't have a hole in the bottom. So this is good if you're in an apartment or somewhere like that. You can either put a saucer underneath, but you actually don't need to because the water shouldn't come out the bottom. It might get slightly damp. Make sure you've got these little spaces on the bottom. And then the beauty of a pot like this is that if you put soil in here and put your plant in, the water comes out through this part of the pot here. It's drawn out of the mix, so the mix doesn't stay just soaking wet. But you can see in the bottom of the pot here how the soil, I've just tipped the soil out and this is sort of damp. So you've got to make sure that you leave long enough for the soil to dry basically almost to the bottom of the pot before you water again. Okay, so that's good if you're in an apartment or somewhere. If you put this out in the sun and you put water on it, the water will be drawn out of this by the heat outside in probably 1 to 2 days. And so you'll need to water quite often. Now, a terracotta pot, usually the terracotta pots come with a hole. And so the terracotta will be the same unless you put a spray on the inside of the pot. It will draw it out very quickly and you'll have to water it quite often. But with both these options here, you can get a spray or paint the inside of the pot, which is a little troublesome, particularly on a commercial scale, I guess. But even at home, you've got to buy a little spray pack of something or get a paint that's particularly made for this purpose and then coat the inside before you pot. The real way to go, if you can find decorative plastic pots, is to use a plastic pot because it doesn't draw any water out of your soil mix. And so therefore you can have more holes in the bottom and a saucer underneath, and you know when the saucer, you can water it and the water will collect in the bottom. You'll see it evaporate out over a couple of days and then you'll be able to water it. But use this pot, a plastic pot will last you, depending on its size, for a week to 2 weeks. And so what you want to be doing is just testing with your finger down in the soil until you become used to it in your situation, because if you're inside an apartment, it'll take much longer to lose the water from the pot than what it will be if it's out in the full sun, where it'll evaporate out the top of the pot this will still heat up, but the water has to evaporate out the top. So what you can do to stop that evaporation is by using a decorative, so just disregard all the bark and that in here, but see the nice white stones, or you can put them around on top, and that will stop the evaporation being quite as quick as what it will without that. So that's one option, and where you have it in the shade or the sun outside will make a difference. So these are the things that you have to think about when you're potting plants and where you're placing them, is that how they're going to react in the pot that you've got them in. So you can manipulate the environment for growing the plants by changing the sort of pots that you've got. So a decorative pot like these ones over here, they've got an enamel surface or a ceramic surface, and so the water won't come out of that pot, and therefore that will hold the water for quite a long time. Now sometimes you buy these pots and they don't have a hole in the bottom. These have a little plug so that people can use them indoors if they want to keep the plug. If you have them outdoors, you just take the plug out. Okay, so that's the basic ingredients for potting.